I am the Director of Education at the Oklahoma History Center, and Carrie Fox. Also, I'll let her introduce herself. Maybe.
Hello, everyone. My name is Carrie Fox, and I'm an educator at the Oklahoma History Center. The first thing I'd like to do today is say thank you for taking the time after your workday, maybe in the middle of your workday, to learn a little bit about the resources that we've developed. I know it's an honor for me to be able to try to come up with resources for educators that are really committed to their students in that spirit. If you ever have anything that you would like to see in a conversation with other educators, you think, there's really a place for that. If you shoot me an email, I will put some attention and effort towards that goal. So just keep that in mind. But our focus tonight is the Tulsa Race Massacre, which is of great importance every year, but especially this year because it is the centennial of the Tulsa Race Massacre. So we're going to take a look at some of the things that we developed with that in mind. So I'm going to share my screen, but I will just let you know I am still working on developing my effortless flow on Zoom, going from one screen to the other. So just patience and grace, please. There we go. All right. So,
and if anybody has any questions at any point in time, we are happy to answer them. Everything here is a work in progress, so we are continuously doing updates, and you'll see some of the updated lesson plans that we have on our website soon. But please feel free to put it in the chat or raise a hand or any of the above.
We're a small group, so I think that we can manage however. So the first thing that I think it's important to kind of acknowledge is the fact that what we're talking about is going to be very challenging to teach. And in order to do that well, you have to, like any skill, put some time and effort into learning what it looks like to handle difficult topics in the classroom. So I went through, these are 3 resources that I kind of previewed. I thought each of them had really good information if I were going to be teaching this topic in the classroom, particularly to a diverse set of students who have a lot of experiences before they enter my classroom, and my need to make sure that everyone feels heard, everyone feels safe, and we get through the material that we need to get through. So I highly recommend these. I believe we should share out this presentation at the end of our time together. So those links should be just active for you. As we look at what Oklahoma history requires in the state standards, there is a good chunk of kind of topics to lay the groundwork in looking at the Tulsa Race Massacre. So what we did was we thought we should plan with the end in mind. If this is what teachers are looking at in order to inform their instruction in the classroom, then that's the kind of content that we are going to create. So what you will find when you go to the Oklahoma History website, and we'll do that towards the end of this presentation, but we have inquiry design model lesson plans on every single one of these stubs: the growth of all Black towns, the passage of Senate Bill 1, Black Wall Street, Tulsa Race Riot, and Riot versus Massacre. The only one we don't have ready to go yet is the one on the Ku Klux Klan. And that's because it's a little bit after the Tulsa Race Massacre when it comes to chronology. So as I was developing these, it made sense to me to put that on the back burner so that we could get all the elements that lay the foundation for that study of the Tulsa Race Massacre in place so that teachers can be using them. The first inquiry that I'd like to share with you that I think if I were going to really teach this in the classroom, I would absolutely start with this one, the one on Black Wall Street, if I didn't have time to do all of the lesson plans for that particular objective, because it does a great job of capturing what was before. And it's got some kind of basic premises that it wants to convey to students. So one of the things that this particular lesson helps students understand is that even though law and custom made sure that the vast number of African Americans during this time period were agricultural laborers and domestics, that wasn't exclusively true. So slowly over time, these independent kind of markets developed, and it kind of tries to draw a line from how that started to how it built up into a mature economy. In this inquiry, and I'll show you where to find those on the website towards the end, but in this inquiry, it first asks the students to kind of take a look through his publication, The Negro in Business, to understand all the different kinds of work that African Americans were performing. Now, for W.E.B. Du Bois, that the area, the geographic area that he was looking at, of course, was Atlanta, Georgia, in the South, and then students will be able to take that, what they learned from that very large African American community and economy, and kind of compare it to Greenwood. They have the opportunity as well to engage with a reading that describes how these economies built over time. And I think sometimes that's an important element that students don't always have a ready grasp of, which is how economies work, how economic, or just being economically literate. So if there's an opportunity to introduce those concepts to my students, I want to take the opportunity to do that. And that is in this inquiry as well. So that would also make it applicable not only to Oklahoma history, but other courses too. So once they do that, then they jump into the historian's #1 favorite activity, which is primary source research. One of the great things that we have on our website is called the Gateway, and that includes a pretty significant collection of African American newspapers. And so what we ask students to do in this is to go through and take a look in the Tulsa Star and kind of develop a record of the different types of businesses, the different services that are being offered, and keep a list of that. And then you can kind of have students work in groups or come together as all group and develop a more comprehensive list of the type of businesses, the type of economic activities that were taking place in Greenwood prior to the events of May 31st, June 1st, 1921. The part that I think students will enjoy very much is the creative element, which is constructing a hypothetical Greenwood. You have many students who are quite adept at software programs, so they could draw it out on a piece of paper for sure. That's available to any student. But for those students who enjoy building in Minecraft or building in SketchUp, this gives them an opportunity to take a piece of software that they enjoy using and using it to kind of make a history lesson come alive. So that is the Greenwood inquiry. Do we have any questions at this point?
Carrie, so you're going over stuff that is available on the website in whole for people to see. That she will get to very shortly. Does does everybody know about the Tulsa race? I meant to ask this at the very beginning. Does everybody know about the history of the Tulsa Race Massacre and Black Wall Street and why it's called Black Wall Street? I'm seeing nodding. Some nodding. Yes, yes. Okay. Good. Good. Just checking. Checking. Okay. All right. Please continue, Carrie.
Okay, so the second lesson that I think would really help students kind of understand that part of Oklahoma's history is the inquiry on the Tulsa Race Massacre. The compelling question that is explored in this inquiry is what causes people to engage in racial violence. I think ultimately that's what all these kind of studies of the Tulsa Race Massacre are boiled down to, because it's just so hard to wrap your head around it sometimes. In this particular inquiry, it focuses deeply on those things that were highlighted in the standard, which is the causes and the effects of the Tulsa Race Massacre. And we created an e-exhibit called the Tulsa Race Massacre that just allows students kind of an easy entry into learning the causes and learning the impacts of the Tulsa Race Massacre. So this inquiry goes along with that e-exhibit, and I'll show you that shortly. But the I think kind of hook for students, in particular with regard to the impact, is part of the inquiry asks students to kind of hypothesize what would happen after this incident of massive violence. What do they think would then happen in a community? And they write that down before they explore the impacts or the effects of the Tulsa Race Massacre. And it's my thinking that students are going to be very, very surprised at the difference between what they suspected would happen and what actually unfolded. It also brings the Tulsa Race Massacre to today because the aftermath has not ended. So it looks kind of at short-term impacts and then the long-term consequences that occurred in Tulsa, in Oklahoma as a result. And the process for students, which I kind of foreshadowed a little bit. The first thing is students spend some time identifying the things that were taking place prior to the Tulsa Race Massacre. It looks at both national and local factors, and those students kind of discuss whether or not they think it's a cause or a catalyst. And the idea there isn't to come up with a perfect list of this 100% were causes of the Tulsa Race Massacre. This was absolutely a catalyst for why it happened, when it did, and where it did. But it's just designed to kind of get them to start working on weighing and analyzing evidence and justifying their arguments. So that's kind of in there to allow students some practice of that. Once they do that, once they take a look at the different factors that contributed to the outbreak of the Tulsa Race Massacre, they go through and they read the massacre section, and then they develop predictions about what they think will happen. They do that before they read the aftermath section, and then you'll work with students to kind of break down why it was that things unfolded the way they did, as opposed to how students predicted it would happen. And then because, like, for me, the number one thing that I hear as an Oklahoman who's been around more than a minute, which is, I didn't learn this in school. The final project for students is to create an instructional piece so that they can kind of address that lack of attention that has existed in education on this topic. Any questions on that? Okay, so what I'm excited to share with you now is the resources that we have on our website. So we're going to look at a few different elements that we have on the website. If you don't remember or you don't want to look, then you can email me and I'll help you locate whatever we talk about. But the landing page is okhistory.org. And the place to access the inquiry lesson plans, probably the easiest way is to click on this link, Black History is Oklahoma History. You will find a wealth of resources regarding Black history in Oklahoma in general. For example, you have those Black newspapers there listed, easy links to get to them. It also tries to show you the different kind of phases, eras where African Americans have participated in Oklahoma's history, and like looking at Oklahoma history from that lens. Also, great opportunity in our Encyclopedia of Oklahoma History and Culture to take a look at individuals and have students kind of work on who in Oklahoma are important figures in Oklahoma history who are also Black. And then for educators, here are the lesson plans that I was talking about. So the ones that we just discussed, the Black Wall Street one, when you click on it, it looks maybe a little bit different from most lesson plans that you may have seen. But I do feel like if you take some time with it, it will be easy to understand. You've got your compelling question, the standard, and they're listed out on the side as to what is being addressed in the box next to it, your hook. And then the different questions that build to the final product. So the first question is, how did Jim Crow sow the seeds of its own destruction? And then it gives you the Du Bois piece that is there for students to explore. And then this is the part where they go through and look at the newspaper. In addition, for students, they can also look at this short handout and discuss the Black economies during the Jim Crow era. The Tulsa Race Massacre, this is what that one looks like. Has the supporting questions, why did white Tulsans invade and destroy Greenwood? That will address the causes, the catalysts. And then the supporting question, what happened to these folks who experienced this massacre? And that addresses the aftermath. And then students will build into a more comprehensive kind of product, final product that they create. And there's also always in these lesson plans extension activities and taking informed action. So on this one, students take a tour of Reconciliation Park, and they kind of take some time if you want to incorporate this into your lesson plan. We consulted with Dr. Hill about what questions they would ask in order to do a comprehensive job of kind of analyzing the perspectives of the Reconciliation Park. And it's interesting because it kind of goes along with document analysis too. So that's a great way to kind of show students that critical assessment of the stories that you are told is always important, and stories can be presented in a wide variety of ways. We also have the e-exhibit that I wanted to show you. We have several e-exhibits that would be relevant if you were laying the groundwork to talk about Black history or the Tulsa Race Massacre. But the e-exhibits are in the For Kids section. And
they're I'm sorry, Carrie.
The Tulsa Race Massacre is right here. And we have changed a little bit the way that you move through them. And there are now links here. Before they were kind of buttons on the bottom, but now they are links on the side. And it goes through. The idea is to have a reading that you can kind of parse out to different students in class. Or if you have a student who is researching this topic for a longer project, this would be a great place to start. And then it just kind of goes through and presents the Tulsa Race Massacre. You can download this as a PDF. We have that available to you as well. Additionally, feel free to take a look at the activities here. Maybe these are totally different than what's in the lesson plan, and maybe you don't have time to implement a full-on multi-day lesson plan. You can always take a look at the other activities that we have. It might be something that you incorporate for Tulsa Race Massacre, or since all of them are designed to work a social studies skill, you might be able to work it into a different element of your class as well. So the PDF is on that first introductory page. You would just click there. And then it comes up as a little booklet. And then the last thing that I wanted to show you, get back to the website. Is the gateway. I will ask, and I'm going to pause, if you could answer in the chat box if you have ever explored the gateway at our website, okhistory.org. So go ahead and put your answers in the chat box.
Carrie, I'm seeing that most people have not yet, so it may be worthwhile to go.
Well, I am absolutely thrilled to be able to share this with you. The Gateway to Oklahoma History is my everyday place to start. You will go down so many rabbit holes when you're trying to actually get work done. It is not okay. So the Gateway to Oklahoma History, when you just open it up, it's gateway.okhistory.org. I think your students will think it's really cool too, because it has all the Oklahoma Publishing Company archives, photo archives. So there's tons of pictures to take a look at. And these older newspapers are kind of wild from a 14-year-old perspective too. Let's see here. We will do a search for Freedmen, and we'll see what we come up with. So you will see photographs that you can incorporate into class. It gives you, and this is good when you're training students on kind of how to use information. It gives you the link to cite the photographs. It tells you about licensing. You can download these photographs in different resolution amounts. So you can have a small version. If they're building a website, you can, if they're doing like a poster or something like that, they can do a higher resolution print. And then the other thing that's pretty neat is this quest to answer the questions of who, when, what, where, and why. So some of these answers, which they've tried as hard as they can to figure out when these pictures were taken, who the pictures are of, sometimes they can't. And You can take a look and see what those challenges are, discuss with your students why you want to be thorough in writing down things like who's in a picture or when the picture was taken. There's an opportunity to, like, if somebody's granddaughter saw their grandpa in that picture and they knew exactly where that picture was taken, they could indicate that and put that on the map, and then it's totally shareable. So the Gateway is a great place to go to work with primary sources, particularly primary sources in Oklahoma, although there are some non-Oklahoma materials included as well. So for me, the photographs are great, and so are the newspapers. Um, they have other things you can access. I just read a book about the cattle industry in Oklahoma off of this website. So the surprises never stop coming on this particular just golden gem, I will say. Let's take a look real quick at the Tulsa Star so you can kind of see how the newspapers are organized and how they're presented. Here is an issue of the Tulsa Star. So it shows you the first page there, and you can go down and see who edited it. This name will come up when you do research about the Tulsa Race Massacre, because this newspaper does not survive the massacre. Its office was burned, and then it gives you the different topics that it is structured under. And then it shows you, like, if you had done a search, I did a search for the Tulsa Star, you can see that in bold. That's sometimes very, very helpful, although the search function is not the best in the world, so sometimes you get kind of gibberish, and I'm sure that will change in the future. So then you can click on the Tulsa Star, and it shows you, these are the highlight for whatever I searched for. You can take that highlighter off with that drop-down menu for tools in case you're trying to print this out and you don't like the little fuzzy spot that shows where it was highlighted. Then you can move. You can go to a particular page if you wanted to. You can click on it and it'll take you to the next page. You can zoom in so that, like, for me, I can't read this unless I zoom in pretty closely. And you can also print out sections of it as well. So there's just anything you could do with the paper newspaper, you can do with these digital newspapers here. So they're phenomenal. And so much to learn, and with the emphasis on primary sources, this is just a great resource to know about for your students.
So, Carrie, I may be speaking before you are ready to go to this, because this is what we seem to do when Carrie and I present together. But what about, there's so many resources on here. What if I'm a teacher and I don't have time to search for all of these things, but I need maybe something about Tulsa Race Massacre or another stuff, social studies?
Sarah, you are cutting in and out, so I didn't actually hear your question. Okay. So you can take it, or I'm happy to answer it, but you can take it too.
Oh, I will put it in the chat. How's that?
Well, let me find that.
everybody hear me? Am I cutting out for everybody or just kind of?
I can hear you.
Okay. Very true. Oh, cool. Keep going, Carrie.
What was your question? I can't see the chat yet. So.
Oh. Find resources. If how can they find resources?
Got it. Thank you. That is a great thing to point out. One of the things that we were concerned about, just coming from like having taught in a classroom and the intense pressure that one faces to accomplish a million things in a pretty short amount of time and do all of them extremely well, and also stay on top of your professional development and contact teacher, parents, and help children tie their shoes. All of those things make it so that it's hard to do deep dives into topics. And so one of the things that we did starting last year was to try to make sure that teachers had the support that they needed with the new social studies standards. So if you don't have time to go look for 15 different primary sources on the gateway for one particular topic, you can go to the education button on okhistory.org, and you can click on this blue button that says resources, and then you will find a list as comprehensive as we could make it, and with the keeping in mind what might be usable in the classroom. So we'll take a look at the standard that we looked at tonight, just to keep things kind of symmetrical. OKH 5.2. Here's the standard at the top. Here are the resources that we have. So those are the IDMs that I showed you, the different e-exhibits that we have that are relevant under that standard. We also have educational trunks that you can check out at no charge. You get to keep them for a week. And they have different curriculum, different media, different hands-on objects, which is what students really respond to. And we've got them on a number of topics, 26, I think, last count. But we have the African Americans in Oklahoma trunk that you can check out. We've got the articles in the encyclopedia that would be relevant if you needed to catch up on something quickly and get up to speed. Additionally, we also have stuff that you can find in our research center. I tried to make sure that most of what we offer you is clickable from your computer at home, rather than having to go and get a source from our research center, although sometimes the sources that they have in the research library were so spot on to the standard that I had to include it. Sometimes it's maybe a book that you might be able to find in your own library. So not all of them are accessible from your home, but many of them are. Then it includes different photographs that you might want to use, and it has the gateway link that you would need to be able to download it in a different resolution. And then it lists out different primary sources and additional resources. So, for example, I thought this looked like a great recent publication on African American history in Oklahoma that you may be able to do like an interlibrary loan, or maybe your library, your local library has it. And then for these larger standards that have the substandards underneath, or the smaller objectives underneath, it goes more specifically into that topic. So Growth of All Black Towns has the encyclopedia articles that are connected to all Black towns, the IDM, different maps if we can find it. And like, for example, this Oklahoma Bound, I don't know if you've ever seen that, but it's some pretty great footage from 1920s that shows life in all Black towns. And they're kind of amazing. It would make a great way to start a lesson on this topic. It also has the other resources, so maybe some more background articles, maybe a, a radio story that you could have students listen to if you've been having them reading a lot. So I tried to include a lot of stuff that worked different senses at least. And then we have that on all the standards at all the grades. So. We also have these other resources. So this lists out the different resources we have for different time periods that you may want to explore as well. Do we have any questions?
Carrie, I don't know if you can, or not. Can you, since apparently I keep cutting out, we also help to update the 2 units for the Tulsa Massacre that are focused on unity and reconciliation. So those are located on the same page and on the Tulsa Massacre.
So yeah, in the standard OKH 5.2, you can take a look at 2 lesson plans that were developed for the Tulsa Race Massacre Commission that look at different, they're just set up differently. They have different objectives. So.
And if you go to the Tulsa Race Massacre Commission's website, their curriculum, they look familiar.
I'm super relieved that I found this chat box now. So when I was sharing my screen, there was no opportunity to click on chat. So yeah, feeling strong on the virtual skills right now. Thanks. I do not have anything else to contribute to anyone else at this point. So if you don't have any more questions, I will log off.
Does anybody have any questions?
Well, I really appreciate your time, and I wish for you the best spring semester that you can possibly have. If you need anything, my name is Carrie Fox. Sarah is there, and our contact information is included in the presentation at the very, very end. Be happy to hear any comments that you have, anything that you would like to see in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.